All right, let's move on to another Big Six matchup. My Super Bowl. Arsenal hosting Manchester United on Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Arsenal is -118. United sitting at 3-1. The draw sitting at +275. If anybody's listened to this podcast for more than, I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes, I think they know exactly where I'm going on this one. I love the Arsenal money line, but I'll let you get in first. Are you going to join me on this Arsenal money line, or are you going to cower away?
I will be passing.
Ugh.
Lean the under. I think I may end up actually betting the under because I have been extremely impressed with the United defense. I think that they put in back-to-back performances against both City and Crystal Palace that were very encouraging. And, we talked last week. We said, okay, United looked really good defensively. They've improved out of possession. I think we said that, a few months ago. But they had done it in the last few weeks against Bournemouth, Wolves, Forest. We were like, okay, let's play a real team. Well, they played a real team, City. They held them to 5 shots. They did an excellent job defensively. They got carved open once from a wide area. But I was extremely impressed with the defense. And I think they played an extremely good defensive game against Crystal Palace as well, even though the beloved Eagles did get the point late on a banger.
That was amazing.
Sometimes you can see a 25-yard, 30-yard screamer, less than half of an expected goal. Palace didn't really do much most of the match, even though United kind of struggled to keep control. But they lost Casemiro, and I think that's a big loss here because it probably means we're getting the McFred pivot here, and it's a little concerning because if you were to go to the root of the problems for Man United under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think it really started with the McFred pivot that just was not good enough. McTominay not good enough of a passer, not good enough at retaining possession under pressure, and that led to them struggling to control games. And if you struggle to control the game at the Emirates and you're giving up possession to Arsenal, that's where they're at their best. These are the 2 most improved defenses in the league year over year. I think if you look across the board, you can, kind of chart, how is a team performing last year versus this year. The 2 best improvements, Arsenal in transition, United, though I think does kind of get a tactical reprieve here because they're so good at springing counters. I mean, we saw in the last meeting, granted it was at Old Trafford, Arsenal was probably the most exposed they've been all year in transition defense, and it was losing the ball middle of the pitch. Fernandez, Eriksson pinging the balls over the top to the Rashfords of the world and getting in behind. I think that's the one area where I think Arsenal could be potentially vulnerable here, but I think both attacks are a little bit overvalued, and I've been saying this for weeks. The 2 Arsenal, getting the production they're getting out of these guys seems a little bit over their skis. And United, we saw it today. I mean, they didn't create anything in the second half. They had, 0.15 XG in the 45 minutes, and they had 1 big chance off a corner in stoppage time. But they have struggled. And I do wonder, like a front 3 of Weghorst, Rashford, and Antony. I don't think there's enough shots in that to, be a consistently good attack against an Arsenal defense like this. So I lean to the under pretty strongly. I'm just a little worried, like, what does it look like without Casemiro? Because I think that it's kind of interesting. Like United, for as well as they played against City, didn't create anything either until the offside goal. So like we should pump the brakes on United's attack here.
That's a wonderful point, Anthony, because if that gets called offsides and suddenly the match is still 1-0, do you think United gets that wonderful springing counterattack, or do you think City plays a little more conservative? But to your point about Casemiro and how big he is for United, I went and did the on-off splits for them defensively, with and without Casemiro, because essentially when he starting fully in the Manchester United lineup, he obviously came off the bench for a while, against Liverpool and up until essentially the first Manchester derby. He started his first match against Everton. Since that point, which is on October 9th. Since that point, United is only allowing 0.8 expected goals per 90 minutes. So basically, when we talk about how good United's been since they had that horrible match against City, well, it's basically because they, like you already mentioned, they don't have to go to McFred anymore. They have Casemiro, who is an unbelievable defensive midfielder, and they can play a double pivot with him at Eriksson and allow Eriksson to go forward. Before Casemiro, before he starting regularly for United, they were allowing 1.58 expected goals per 90 minutes. And I understand that they went through a rough stretch to begin the season, but that's how much he actually means for their midfield. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them to stop Arsenal because, like I already mentioned, they did a great job clogging up the middle of the pitch against City. And I was writing my notes out during the Crystal Palace match, And what I had down was basically like Arsenal has done such a good job at creating overloads and attacking opponents in wide areas with Martinelli, Xhaka, Odegaard, basically being allowed to roam around the pitch because Thomas Partey is such a good defensive midfielder at cleaning up those transition opportunities that Arsenal, that's where they're at their best, creating those type of opportunities. But now I think they'll be able to play through wherever they want on the pitch. And Ten Hag, obviously against United, he brought on Fred. He took off Anthony and he said, all right, we got to play two defensive midfielders because we're not going to have the ball as much, which was very, very smart to do. If we see McFred again, I think Arsenal is going to pummel them. And you mentioned the last meeting. Well, there was it was expected goals was essentially dead even. There was a questionable VAR decision as well in the first half that could have changed the outcome of the match. But a big thing for Arsenal in that match is they didn't have Thomas Partey, who, like I already mentioned, is one of the best defensive midfielders in transition and is really the main reason why Arsenal is the best defensive team in transition, allowing the second fewest progressive passes and dribbles per 90 minutes and also allowing the fifth lowest build-up completion percentage. And let's be honest, United's success this season against the Big Six, all of it's come at Old Trafford because they've beaten Liverpool, Tottenham, City, and Arsenal all at home, and they've only played two Big Six sides away from home where they got pasted by City 6-3, and then they needed a stoppage time goal to beat a Chelsea team that was starting to have all of their problems. Arsenal is one of the best home teams in the Premier League. They're a plus 11.7 expected goal differential in 8 matches, and Arsenal is going to have the rest advantage with United playing on Wednesday against Crystal Palace. So I think the price is a tad short here on Arsenal. I grabbed them once Casemiro got the yellow card. I said, all right, I'm in now. They've jumped up at most books around minus 115, minus 120. But I still do like them at that price because I do project them at minus 148. And just for all of you who think I'm so biased out there, 538 has Arsenal at 54% as well. So they are showing a tad bit of value on them as well. So I love my Gunners. I'll minus 115 on the money line to beat Manchester United.
Yeah, I've got Arsenal minus 127. So maybe a tiny bit of value, but again, same thing. I'm not running to the window. This is kind of similar to the Newcastle match for me. I think we're kind of two ascending teams where I'm not really looking to bet on either. Arsenal had a good performance against Tottenham, aided by Lloris's error. I really didn't like how they played the second half. You're up 2 goals, but when Arsenal doesn't have the possession, they're so bad. I mean, there was a lot of last-ditch miracle defending and Ramsdale backpacking that got them that result. And thankfully it saved my under. It was just not that encouraging. But like you said, United not having Casemiro, a huge loss. If I bet anything here, it will be the under. But I don't really like a side.